Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk to you about something powerful, something personal, and something that is destined to change your life. It's the revelation of the fact that you are marked by God. Now you may be wondering, what does it mean to be marked by God? It means that there is a divine hand upon your life, a purpose greater than your own that is leading you, shaping you, and empowering you. It's a mark that goes beyond the natural and taps into the supernatural. It's a sign that God has set you apart for a special destiny, a life of influence and impact. This morning I want to share with you 7 signs that you are marked by God, 7 indicators that when you look at them, you will know that you are on a journey that cannot fail because it is being guided by the creator of the universe. When you are marked by God, you will find that your life is defined by a unique dream or vision. It's a dream that feels larger than life, something that stirs your soul and keeps you awake at night. It's not something that can be explained by logic, nor is it something that fits into the box that society expects you to live in. No, this vision is bigger than anything you could have imagined for yourself. It doesn't always make sense, but it is undeniable. Consider the story of Joseph, a young man who received a vision from God that seemed impossible, even foolish. He dreamt of ruling over his family, seeing his brothers bow down to him. His dream was so audacious that it caused a deep rift with his brothers. They couldn't understand it. They ridiculed him, threw him into a pit, and sold him into slavery. But Joseph's dream didn't disappear. In the pit, in the prison, and through all the years of hardship, his vision remained intact. God was preparing him, refining him, and molding him for the greatness his dream promised. That vision, which seemed impossible to others, was actually the very thing that would elevate him to a position of power, enabling him to save not just his family, but an entire nation from famine. When God marks your life, the vision he gives you often comes with a sense of impossibility. Your dream might seem so far out of reach that it feels like it's destined to be unfulfilled. But this is the beauty of God's marking. The dream he gives you is not about your current capabilities. It's about his ability to equip you, empower you, and open doors that you never imagined could be opened. Joseph never thought his journey from the pit to the palace would take him through betrayal, slavery, or imprisonment. But with each trial, he grew stronger, wiser, and more prepared for his ultimate calling. There are countless people in history whose lives were defined by a vision that others could not comprehend. Take Martin Luther King Jr., for example. He had a dream, not just a personal vision, but a vision for an entire nation. His dream was not just a fleeting thought. It was a deeply embedded purpose that drove every action he took. When he stood on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and declared, "I have a dream," he wasn't just speaking about a future he envisioned for himself. He was sharing a vision of unity, equality, and justice that was far beyond what the world could see at that moment. There will be moments when people will look at you and say, "Why are you dreaming so big? Why are you reaching for things that seem out of your grasp?" The truth is, the vision you carry is not meant to be understood by those who haven't been marked by God. Your vision will challenge others to think bigger, to rise higher, and to believe in possibilities that once seemed impossible. The road will not always be smooth, but the dream that God has planted in your heart will propel you forward, even when everything else around you seems to be working against you. When God marks you, he places a vision within you that is unique. It's a purpose that no one else can fulfill. It might be a dream to start a business that transforms an industry, to write a book that touches lives, to build a ministry that leads people to Christ, or to serve in a way that impacts the world for the better. Whatever it is deeply personal and divinely orchestrated. But your vision is not just for you. It's for the people whose lives will be changed because you dared to dream. It's for the communities you will uplift, the generations you will inspire, and the lives you will save. That vision might begin in your heart, but it will spread like wildfire, changing the world in ways you can't yet imagine. So if you find yourself dreaming big, if you feel a purpose rising within you that goes beyond your own understanding, then you can be sure your life is marked by God. When you are marked by God, you will not escape opposition. In fact, opposition is one of the clearest signs that you are on the right path. It's easy to think that when things are difficult, we must be doing something wrong. But let me tell you this, the very struggles and setbacks you face could be the evidence that you are walking in your divine purpose. Take the life of David as an example. From the moment he was anointed by Samuel to be the next king of Israel, his life took a drastic turn. Instead of being celebrated and elevated, he found himself fighting for his life. He was pursued by King Saul, who sought to kill him because he feared David's potential. David's journey to kingship wasn't a straight line. It was filled with obstacles, setbacks, betrayals, and heartache. He faced giants, literal and figurative, that tested his faith, his resilience, and his character. But what David experienced wasn't just a series of unfortunate events. It was divine preparation. Every battle he fought, every hardship he endured was equipping him to be the king God had called him to be. Through his struggles, David learned how to lead, how to trust in God's timing, and how to rely on God's strength rather than his own. When he finally ascended to the throne, he wasn't just a young man who was lucky enough to be chosen. He was a warrior, a leader, and a man of God who had been refined through fire. The opposition you face is not a sign of failure, it's a sign of divine preparation. Nehemiah faced opposition when he was tasked with rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. Those around him mocked him, tried to discourage him, and even plotted against him. But Nehemiah understood that opposition was part of the calling. He pressed forward, knowing that God had marked him for a specific purpose and that no weapon formed against him would prosper. Despite the fierce resistance, Nehemiah completed the task, rebuilding the walls in record time. Your opposition may not look the same as David's or Nehemiah's, but the principle is the same. If you are marked by God, you will encounter resistance. This is not because God has abandoned you, but because the enemy sees the potential in you that you may not yet see in yourself. Opposition often comes because your purpose is a threat to the forces of darkness that want to keep you stagnant, discouraged, and defeated. Think about the struggles you have faced or are facing right now. Are you facing rejection? Are you battling with self-doubt or fear? Are your dreams being mocked by those who don't understand? If so, then it's time to recognize that the enemy is afraid of the impact your life is going to have. Your struggles are not random. They are a sign that you are on the path that God has destined for you. God uses these moments to refine your faith, build your character, and equip you to fulfill the destiny He has marked for you. Embrace the struggles, for they are not the end but the beginning of your testimony. The greater the opposition, the greater the opportunity for God to show His power in your life. Just like David, Joseph, and Nehemiah, your struggles are the stepping stones to your victory. Keep moving forward. The battle may be fierce, but the victory is assured. The mark of God on your life will carry you through. When you are marked by God, there is one thing you cannot escape: purpose. It will relentlessly pursue you. This pursuit is not something you can simply walk away from or ignore, no matter how hard you try. It's a constant driving force within you that stirs your heart, ignites your passions, and keeps you awake at night. When God marks you, purpose begins to chase you down, and no matter how far you run, it finds you. Look at the life of Moses. He was born with a divine purpose, but for a time he tried to ignore it. Raised in the palace of Egypt, he lived a life of comfort, far from the people he was destined to deliver. Yet deep inside, Moses knew there was something greater for him. He tried to escape his calling, fleeing Egypt after killing an Egyptian who was abusing a Hebrew slave. But no matter how hard he tried to run, his purpose found him. One day, while tending sheep in the wilderness, Moses encountered a burning bush. God spoke to him from that bush and reminded him of the purpose that had been marked on his life. In that moment, Moses could no longer ignore his divine calling. His purpose had found him, and from that point onward, he would no longer live for himself. His life was not his own. It was to deliver the Israelites from slavery. Moses tried to resist. He even questioned his abilities, asking God, "Who am I to do this?" But purpose doesn't leave you simply because you don't feel qualified. When you are marked by God, the call on your life is greater than your doubts, your fears, or your feelings of inadequacy. Your purpose does not depend on your qualifications, but on God's ability to equip you. There are many of you right now who feel like Moses. Maybe you've tried to run from your purpose. Maybe you've convinced yourself that you are unworthy or incapable of fulfilling the calling on your life. But I am here to tell you that the purpose God has marked you for will find you, just as it found Moses. It will relentlessly pursue you until you can no longer ignore it. And when that happens, you will begin to realize that there is a destiny within you that cannot be silenced. Your purpose will keep coming back. It will show up in your dreams, in your thoughts, in the opportunities that present themselves to you, and in the people you encounter. You may have tried to bury it, to move on with your life as though everything is fine, but deep down you know something is missing. That's the pursuit of purpose. Just as Nehemiah was consumed with the burden to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, your purpose will begin to consume you. Nehemiah was a cupbearer in a distant land, far removed from the destruction of Jerusalem. Yet when he heard about the state of the city's walls, he wept. His heart broke for a cause that was not his own, and it compelled him to take action. God had marked him for a specific purpose, to restore the city of his ancestors, and nothing, not even the king's orders, could distract him from it. Your purpose is no different. It will call you, it will compel you, and it will not let you rest. You might try to ignore it for a time, but the more you resist, the stronger the pull will become. When you are marked by God, purpose will find you. And when it does, you will never be the same. Another unmistakable sign that you are marked by God is the strength you possess to endure the challenges in front of you. It is not the kind of strength that comes from your own abilities, but a supernatural inner strength that rises up when you need it the most. This strength is not always visible, but it is always there, carrying you through your most difficult trials and sustaining you when the world expects you to break. Consider the story of Esther. She was an ordinary Jewish girl raised in exile who found herself in an extraordinary position, queen of Persia. But her position came with an enormous responsibility. When her people faced annihilation at the hands of Haman, the king's advisor, Esther was called to stand in the gap. It was a life or death situation. If she went to the king uninvited, she risked her life. But if she did nothing, her people would perish. Esther was terrified. She questioned her ability, her worth, and the weight of the decision in front of her. But God had marked her for such a time as this. In her moment of uncertainty, Esther found a strength that was not her own. With the guidance of her uncle Mordecai, she fasted and prayed for 3 days, seeking God's strength to take the bold step that would change the fate of her people. Esther's story is a powerful example of how God's mark on your life equips you with strength when you feel weakest. She stepped into the king's court with courage that can only come from God. And because of that, she was able to save her people from destruction. In moments when you feel like you cannot go on, God will give you strength. This strength is not always flashy or obvious, but it is there. It might look like peace in the midst of chaos, like wisdom when you're facing an impossible decision, or the ability to endure pain that others cannot fathom. This is the supernatural strength that comes from being marked by God. Think about Paul. He faced constant persecution, shipwrecks, imprisonment, and hardship as he spread the message of the gospel. Yet, through it all, he wrote letters of encouragement, uplifting the very people who were holding him captive. How could someone endure such suffering and still find the strength to serve others? It wasn't his strength, it was the strength of God. You may not feel like you have the strength to face what is in front of you, but when you are marked by God, you will find that the strength you need is always available. God does not call you to a purpose and then leave you to figure it out on your own. He equips you with the strength, wisdom, and courage you need to face every challenge that comes your way. The trials you face, the obstacles you encounter, and the struggles you endure are not signs that God has abandoned you. They are the very environments in which His strength is most evident. It is in your weakness that His power is perfected. When you feel like you cannot go on, you are about to witness the power of God carry you through in ways you never thought possible. You are not walking this journey alone. When you are marked by God, He gives you the unseen strength to endure, to overcome, and to fulfill the purpose He has placed on your life. And that strength will carry you through every battle, every season of hardship, and every obstacle that tries to stand in your way. When you are marked by God, you will develop an intense, unshakable desire for transformation, not just in your life, but in the world around you. This deep yearning will grow within you and will shape your thoughts, your actions, and your priorities. You will feel a sense of dissatisfaction with the status quo, a longing to see change in yourself and in others. Transformation is not just a goal, it becomes your mission. Paul is an extraordinary example of transformation. Before his encounter with Christ, he was known as Saul, a ruthless persecutor of Christians. His life was steeped in tradition, and he felt no need for change. But when Saul met Jesus on the road to Damascus, he was blinded, humbled, and radically transformed. In a moment, everything changed. He was no longer the same man. The scales fell from his eyes, and his heart was renewed. No longer satisfied with the life he once knew, Paul embraced a new identity and a new mission. He became an apostle, traveling the world, spreading the gospel and planting churches. He did not just desire transformation for himself, but for entire communities, nations, and generations. When God marks you, this same desire for transformation takes root. It's a desire that propels you to move beyond your comfort zone, to push past your fears, and to step into the unknown. This is the kind of transformation that doesn't just change your circumstances, but your very soul. It alters how you see the world, how you see yourself, and how you see God. You begin to understand that there is something greater at work than just your personal gain or success. You become a vessel for God's transformative power to flow through, not just in your own life, but in the lives of those around you. You see this desire for transformation in the heart of Nehemiah, who was deeply moved when he heard about the ruined walls of Jerusalem. Though he was serving in a palace far from the destruction, the condition of his homeland broke his heart. Nehemiah could have stayed in his comfortable position, but the desire for transformation, to see his people restored, to rebuild what had been broken, drove him to action. His burden was not just for himself, but for an entire community. He left his secure job as a cupbearer to lead the charge in rebuilding Jerusalem's walls, despite all the opposition he faced. Nehemiah's story demonstrates that when God marks you, the desire for transformation becomes a fire within you. You cannot sit still. You are compelled to act. Transformation also becomes contagious. When you are marked by God and experience personal transformation, you cannot help but share that transformation with others. Just as Jesus transformed the lives of the disciples, so too does the change that happens within you ripple outwards. The love, the peace, the joy that flows from a life transformed by God inspires others to seek that same change in their own lives. You will find yourself naturally drawn to those who are lost, broken, and seeking. And the transformation you've experienced becomes a living testimony of what God can do in their lives. But it's not just about personal or external transformation, it's also about spiritual growth. Those marked by God are always in pursuit of becoming more like Christ. This deep desire for personal and spiritual transformation doesn't fade as time goes on. It intensifies. Your desire to grow in wisdom, in understanding, and in your relationship with God becomes an unquenchable thirst. This type of transformation is continuous. God doesn't just transform you once. He is constantly molding you, refining you, and calling you into deeper levels of His presence. If you have found yourself constantly dissatisfied with the way things are, with where you are in life, or with the condition of the world, know that it is the mark of God. The dissatisfaction isn't a curse. It is a divine calling to bring change. Your desire for transformation is not just your own. It's a reflection of God's heart to see His creation made new. The mark on your life will push you to be a catalyst for change in every area, whether in your own heart, in your community, or on a global scale. When God marks you, He gives you a heart for service. This isn't just about helping others when it's convenient or when you feel like it. No, this is a deep, sacrificial heart that is driven to serve, not just when you recognize, but especially when you're not. It's about seeing the needs of others and responding with love and action. This kind of heart is shaped by the selfless example of Jesus, who, despite being the King of all creation, took on the role of a servant. Jesus, the Son of God, washed the feet of His disciples, something reserved for the lowest of servants in the culture of the time. He didn't need to do it. He wasn't trying to gain status or recognition. He served them because He loved them. He showed them that true greatness is not measured by how many people serve you, but by how many people you serve. This heart for service is one of the clearest indicators that you are marked by God. Mother Teresa is another powerful example of a heart for service. She was a simple nun, yet she dedicated her life to serving the poorest of the poor, the sick and the dying in Calcutta. She was not seeking fame, wealth, or recognition. She had nothing to gain personally, yet she gave everything she had to serve others. Her life was a living reflection of Christ's love and service to humanity. This heart for service transforms your view of the world. When you are marked by God, you no longer live for yourself. The needs of others become your priority. This heart compels you to step out of your comfort zone, to go to the places others avoid, and to love those whom society may deem unworthy of love. The mark of God on your life equips you to serve in ways that may require great sacrifice, but always lead to great reward in the kingdom of God. The heart of service is not always about grand gestures or public recognition. Often, it is the quiet, unseen acts of service that have the greatest impact. It might be a simple word of encouragement when someone is down, a phone call to check on a friend, or a small act of kindness to a stranger. These small acts of love and service add up over time and create ripples that extend far beyond your immediate reach. Look at Ruth, a young widow who left her homeland and traveled with her mother-in-law Naomi to an unfamiliar land. Ruth's commitment to Naomi was an act of sacrificial service. She had nothing to gain by staying with Naomi, no future, no security, no comfort. But she chose to serve her mother-in-law with faithfulness and love. And through that act of service, God marked her life in a profound way. Ruth's service led her to Boaz, and together they became the great-grandparents of King David. From this humble act of service came a lineage that ultimately led to the birth of Jesus Christ. When you are marked by God, service becomes a natural overflow of the love and grace that has been poured into your life. you become a conduit through which God's love touches the world. Whether you serve in your home, in your community, or on a global scale, the mark of God will lead you to a life of selfless service, a life that reflects the heart of Christ. Your service may not always be celebrated by the world, but it will never go unnoticed by God. He sees every act of love, every sacrifice, and every effort to serve His people. And in His kingdom, this is what true greatness looks like. One of the most undeniable signs that you are marked by God is the favor that surrounds your life. This favor is not something you can earn or achieve through human effort. It is the hand of God actively working on your behalf, opening doors, aligning circumstances, and placing you in positions where others might never have dreamed possible. This favor does not make sense to those around you, and at times it might even seem like you're simply in the right place at the right time. But the truth is, God's favor is not just about timing or coincidence. It's the result of being marked by His divine purpose. Think about the life of Daniel. He was taken captive as a young man to a foreign land, away from his family, his culture, and his God. The odds were stacked against him. Yet Daniel found favor with the king's officials. He rose to a position of influence in the Babylonian Empire, not because he was more talented or better than others, but because God marked his life with extraordinary favor. The king saw something in Daniel: wisdom, integrity, and an undeniable presence that could only be explained by the hand of God. Daniel's favor was not limited to the king's court. Even when he faced the threat of death for praying to his God, God's favor was upon him. He survived the lion's den unscathed, and in the end, his enemies were defeated. This favor was not something Daniel could manufacture. It was God's protection, promotion, and provision in his life. And this favor didn't just serve Daniel. It served the larger purpose of God's will for His people. When God marks you, His favor will begin to follow you in ways that others cannot explain. It will show up in promotions at work, in opportunities that seem too good to be true, in favor from those who are in positions of power, and in unexpected blessings that go beyond what you could have imagined. God's favor isn't just about material wealth or personal gain. It's the favor that positions you to fulfill the purpose God has for you. It is favor that leads you to the right people at the right time. It's favor that provides for your needs when you least expect it. Consider the story of Joseph once more. After he was sold into slavery by his brothers, he found favor with his Egyptian master, Potiphar. Even as a slave, Joseph experienced promotion and success in everything he did. His favor wasn't a result of his position or circumstances. It was because God was with him. When Potiphar's wife falsely accused him of a crime, Joseph's favor didn't diminish. It continued to follow him into prison. In that prison, he gained favor with the prison warden, and ultimately, this favor led him to the highest position in Egypt, second only to Pharaoh. God's favor doesn't just protect you from harm, it positions you for His ultimate purpose. Joseph's entire journey was about preparation. His elevation to power wasn't merely about him being blessed. It was about him being in the right place to save an entire nation from famine. His favor wasn't just for him, but for everyone who would be impacted by the choices he made. Favor doesn't always show up in ways you expect. Sometimes it looks like being passed over for a promotion that you were sure you deserved, only to have a better opportunity come your way a few months later. Sometimes it looks like facing a difficult trial that forces you to depend on God, only to realize that it was through that trial that God opened doors for you that you could never have imagined. Ruth experienced God's favor in the same way. As a widowed foreigner, she had nothing but a desire to serve her mother-in-law and trust in God. She worked in the fields of a man named Boaz, and God's favor allowed her to find favor in His eyes. This led to her being married to Boaz, becoming part of the lineage of King David and ultimately the ancestral line of Jesus Christ. Ruth's favor wasn't about her personal strength or abilities. It was the result of God's hand upon her life. When you are marked by God, His favor follows you. It doesn't make sense to the world, but it is a clear indicator of His presence in your life. This favor will take you places you couldn't have gone on your own. It will provide for you in ways you couldn't have planned. It will open doors that no man can shut and close doors that no man can open. It is this divine favor that helps you rise above obstacles, that opens the door to your purpose, and that positions you to be a blessing to others. Favor will take you further than your qualifications, your background, or your experience. It will make a way for you where there seems to be no way. When you experience the favor of God, it serves as a testament to His goodness and sovereignty. It's a reminder that He is orchestrating your steps, even when it feels like the road ahead is uncertain. God's favor doesn't depend on your efforts. It depends on His grace. Finally, when you are marked by God, you become a light to the world around you. This light isn't about your own shine or glory. It's a reflection of God's presence within you. When God marks you, His light shines through your life, illuminating the darkness in the lives of those around you. People will notice something different about you. You will begin to attract others who are drawn to the hope, the peace, and the joy that you radiate. Even when your circumstances are difficult, this light isn't just for you. It's meant to be shared with the world. Jesus said, "You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden." When you are marked by God, your life becomes a beacon guiding others to Him. The way you live, the choices you make, and the love you show reflect the transformative power of God in your life. Think about Abraham. God promised him that he would be the father of many nations, and through his lineage, the entire world would be blessed. Abraham's life was marked by God, and through his obedience and faith, he became a light to generations to come. The nations around him were able to see the greatness of God through his life. His faith became a living testimony of God's faithfulness. In the New Testament, we see this principle carried out in the life of Paul, who, despite being imprisoned, traveled tirelessly to spread the gospel. His very presence in the prison cell or in the marketplace became a light to others. People saw his joy, his hope, and his unwavering faith in the midst of hardship. His light didn't diminish in darkness. It grew brighter. When you are marked by God, you don't just become a light to those who agree with you or believe like you. You become a light to all. Your kindness, your generosity, and your wisdom will shine in a world that is often filled with negativity, confusion, and despair. When people encounter your life, they will encounter the light of Christ shining through you. You may not always see the impact you are making, but know that your light is affecting those around you. Just as a small light can brighten a dark room, your light has the power to brighten the world. Your actions, your words, and your heart can lead someone to see God in a way they never have before. When you are marked by God, your light will shine unmistakably, powerfully, and undeniably. And in this world that so desperately needs hope, your light will make a difference. When you are marked by God, your life becomes a powerful testimony to His grace, purpose, and unshakable love. These signs: purpose that relentlessly pursues you, unexplainable strength in your weakest moments, an unwavering desire for transformation, a heart that overflows with service, favor that opens doors, and the light that shines brightly through you are not merely random occurrences. They are the undeniable evidence that God has chosen you for a specific plan, one that transcends your own limitations and reaches into the hearts of others. Each of these signs points to a greater truth. God is at work in your life. He has marked you for greatness, not by your own ability, but by His divine purpose. The favor, the strength, the transformation, it's all part of His plan to shape you into the person He created you to be, to fulfill the calling He has placed upon your life, and to impact the world around you. You are not here by accident. The mark of God on your life is a call to rise above your circumstances, to serve others with love and humility, to live in the fullness of his favor, and to be a light that guides others to the truth of who he is. It's time to walk in that calling. It's time to embrace the mark of God on your life fully. And as you do, you will see his promises unfold in ways you never thought possible, transforming not only your life, but the lives of all those you touch. God has placed a mark on you. Don't ever forget that. It's a mark of purpose, of favor, of transformation, and of hope. When you understand that you are marked by God, you will walk with confidence, knowing that the creator of the universe is with you, guiding you and empowering you to fulfill your destiny. It's time to live out the fullness of that mark, because the world needs the light you carry. The world needs you.